So let's quickly review. We're going to do something a little more complicated, but let's review first how you make a new Pico 8 program. So we learned last time we need three main functions. So the first one is function underscore init. That's where all the variables and data structures get set up the first time. And you got function update, which is where all the game action will be programmed. And then you got function draw, which is where all the graphics get drawn to the screen. So always start a new program by making these three functions first of all. Also, you can make a comment in your functions by typing two dashes. And most Pico 8 cartridges start with two lines in there. Let's just call this tutorial 2. And you put your name on it. So I'll put Uncle Matt. Oops. Okay. So this is how you start a nice, good, clean Pico 8 file. So we want to do the same things we did before, but we are going to experiment with sound, and we're going to have some other functions in this program. So let's get set up the same way we did before. Let's do it all again to review. So player X holds onto our X coordinate, and we'll start at 64. Player Y holds onto our Y coordinate, and we'll be at 64 because that's the middle. And we're going to add some new stuff here. Let's not forget to indent it. It gets indented once inside a function. So that's the correct way to do that. And let's get our controls back. So we have to ask the computer what to do by asking it with an if question. So if, and then we open the bracket for the conditions inside the if. And we wanted to check what happens when we press to the left. So if button 0, that means if left is being pressed, then, and the next line will be what we do if left is being pressed. So in our case, it's player X negative equals 1. And now we're going to do right if button 1, which is the right on the controller, then player X plus equals 1, because it's going to add to his X coordinate, moving him right. And if, I think, button 2 is up, player Y this time, negative equals 1, because we're going up. And if button 3 is pressed, that's down on the controller, and that will be player Y plus equals 1, and then that's our function. And down here, we go sprite index number 1. Let me just check that he's still there. Yeah, that's where I left him, at index 1. And then he goes at player X, player Y. And now let's run it as a test. So I just remade the same program really quick, just as review. And when I run that, oh, I forgot one last thing. What did I forget? We're not clearing the screen, so we just keep drawing the same sprite and making a trail. So let's go and add CLS to the beginning of our statement here. Okay, let's run it as a test. Okay, so we're right back to where we were. So I want to add a new ability to this guy. So I'm going to make it so we can change characters as we play. We might not want a feature like this in our finished game, but we're going to learn some new things by doing this. So I have two variables, player X and player Y. Let's add a third. I'm going to call it character type. You can call it something shorter. If that's too long to type, let's change it to C type. And that's for character type. We're going to start with 1 because each of our characters is going to be the same as our sprite index. So our first guy is 1. So let's make a few new characters so we can change them as we go. Let's make, I'm going to make some quick, simple guys. And let's make a tall, thin guy. He's pretty stupid. And let's make another one. You can spend more time and make better ones. I'm going to make quick and easy, goofy guys. Okay, so there's our 4 characters. This guy's the worst. There we go. Okay, so C-type is going to be our which sprite we draw. So down here in our sprite declaration, we've been just drawing 1 the whole time. I'm going to change it to C-type. Let's run the code again. And now we see this guy moving around. Now let's get back in there. What happens if we change the value of C-type to 2? Oh, I typed it twice. Now we've got this guy. And if C-type is 3 and we run it again, we got this ugly guy. So let's set it back to 1. Now let's make it so we can press a button and change what our character is. So button 4 is going to be the X button, I think, as Pico8 calls it, which is sometimes Z on the keyboard. And if you're using a joystick, it'll be something different. You'll find it. So when we do this, we're going to take C-type and we're going to add a number to C-type. So let's see what happens. Oh dear. So he changed to all the characters. He changed so fast, and then he disappeared because we got no more. So it's extremely hard to pick one. So I'm going to show you about a new function. The reason he changed so fast is because the update function is being checked over and over and over again so fast. So it's being checked faster than when my finger goes down on a button and goes up from a button. So if I press that button, even if I press it quick, it's probably going to be down for at least 3 frames or so. That means we'll change the character type 3 times before we've even let go of the button. So it's extremely tough to just change the character once. I'm trying to do it and it's really hard. So we have another function, and that's a special function for buttons that are not to be held down but to be pressed once. So I'm going to change this to button P. Now button P will only be a true condition if the button wasn't being pressed on the frame before. That means you can't hold the button. So now that I've done that, let's see if it's a little easier to change characters. Yep, now I can change them one at a time. But now they disappear because the value of C-type goes up only. It doesn't go down again. So let's try to put a boundary on that so we can't select nothing. I want it so that when we are done selecting the guy who's number 4, we go back to number 1. So let's check that. I basically want to tell the computer if it's 5 or greater, then it goes to 1. So think about how we say that sentence. If it's 5 or greater, then it should be 1. So we write almost something exactly like this. So inside the if statement, which means after the if line and before the word end here, because every if statement has its own end, we are going to type another if statement inside. So this if statement only happens if this if statement with the button 4 is true. So if C-type is greater than or equal, that's the greater than symbol there, so greater than or equal to 5, then we know we don't have any character, so we should say then C-type equals 1. There we go. I have to put another end because I've got another if statement. So let's have a look and see what happens this time. There we go. There's all 4 of my characters that I can change from as I hit the button. We also want to notice how to write good, clean code. So every time an if starts, all the conditions, not conditions, but all these statements that happen after the if is said to be true, they get indented by 1. See how this is moved 1 space in? And now inside the if, I have another if. So that one doesn't get moved in 1 more, but its contents get moved 1 in. So it gets further indented for every if we go in, and the indents go away when each if statement is done. So that means this end goes from this if. So this is the end of this if statement. And this one out here is the end of this one. They're indented the same, which means they're pushed in from the left the same. That's called nesting. So these are nested lines of code. So now I don't hear any sounds in this game at all. We haven't made any yet. So let's make a cool sound when we change the character. To make a sound, we've got to either click on our speaker icon up here, or we can hold Alt and press to the right and go to the sound editor. So let's make a quick sound. We have all these different wave types and they do different things, and we can draw sound detail here and we can press space to try it out. So that's pretty loud and crazy. Let's see if I draw with this noise channel here. It should be crunchy. Now let's try drawing with a square wave. It should be like a beep. Oh. Okay, so let's make a cool noise for changing characters. It should be like a menu noise. So let's get rid of all this. We can only get rid of it by setting the volume to 0. So let's make a single note. If they're all the same height, they're all the same pitch. And then let's make a lower pitch one and see what that sounds like. It's very fast. If I click on the speed number, it'll be a little slower. Two is a good speed. It's like a menu that way. There we go. And this is the volume. It'd be nice if we started the volume high and then let it fade a bit. So I'll draw like a fading curve. This means it starts loud, gets a bit quieter. There we go. So this sound effect has an index and we're at 0. If I click on this, I go to my other sound effects. I haven't made any yet. I've just got this one at 0. So much like the sprite, we got to remember that index if we want to call upon that sound. So let's go back to the place where we changed the C type. And every time the C type gets changed, let's have a sound effect. So let's go SFX for sound effects, 0. And now let's run. Here we go. Every time we hit the button to change our character type, we get a nice sound effect. Okay, so let's look at what we got. We have our first piece of different game logic here. So we've got something to happen for all 4 directions. And we've got a sound effect here when we press the button, which is not a direction. Button 4 is actually the X button. And we change a new variable. We change C type. We add another thing there. We add another 1 every time we press that button. And when C type is changed, we also play the sound effect. And we have a special check statement here to check if C type is greater or equal to 5, then set C type back to 1, because we've only got 4 characters, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if it equals 5, it's got to be set back to 1. And the draw function hasn't changed, except our sprite command. We don't put down 1 as the index, we put down C type as the index for our sprite, because C type could be 1, or it could be 2, or it could be 3, or it could be 4. But we've got that check making sure it's never allowed to be 5. Okay, so that's our new ability we gave our characters. We're eventually going to look into stuff like shooting bullets or jumping or something like that. But for now, we got to start simple. All right, I'll be back.